We're back. You are chatting with John P. Today, we are going to be looking at the new watch releases from Breitling. If you're not familiar with what's going on in the watch industry, because all the watch shows have been canceled, if any brands need to be releasing watches, they're really just going to have to do it on their own. SIHH and Baselworld, the two main fairs where watches would be released, have both been canceled. I made previous videos talking about it, including one recent video where I talk about Baselworld specifically because everything that's going on with this virus that is going around worldwide. And so now what we have is we have brands just releasing watches whenever they want, if at all. Some brands have publicly stated they will not be releasing watches at all this year. And it's my guess that they already invested a lot into different displays and things like that that they want to use for a grand unveiling, as well as they just don't think the current market climate is really appropriate for new watch releases or that anyone will buy them. But if you also have been following this channel for a while, you know that I seem to always like to pick on Breitling. And I want to make it very clear that I don't hate Breitling and I don't hate their watches in terms of the quality. I think spec for spec, they offer some extremely competitive watches against other watches in their price points, and sometimes even a little bit higher. And that goes for most brands today in that $3,000 to $8,000 retail price range. A lot of the watches are so comparable, both with the movements, even if they use separate movements, in-house movements or modified movements from manufacturers like Etta or some of the others. All of these watches are so close in terms of spec. Sometimes you get an outlier, and usually I make a video talking about it. But what we have for Breitling is, while all the new releases so far, and I only glanced at it, I'm going to be responding in real time, switching the camera angle and looking at it with you. But what I see so far is, spec for spec, pretty much the same thing they've been offering, which is not bad. But the designs at first glance are completely shocking but unoriginal, and that's why so shocking. And one of those designs is the Breitling Chronomat B01 42, brand new watch. Go figure. What does it look like? It looks exactly like an AP, Audemars Piguet, Royal Oak, and every other copy or Genta inspired integrated looking sports watch on the market. Now at the end of this video, after we look at the watches, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this specific model, which we will see in just a few seconds, and also if I think that it will be a success for Breitling, which has been trying just literally anything that they can in order to gain the attraction of watch collectors. So without further ado, let's flip the camera angle and take a look at the Breitling website and all of the new watch offerings from the brand. Here we are on the Breitling website. Right away, we're hit with the new B01 Chronomat 42. Right away, we have a ladies Navitimer Automatic 35. Really odd to see that as the first watch they want you to know about. A ladies watch. Breitling used to have many ladies watches, but they didn't really sell. A lot of them went out. Gray market, got dumped out there. I think we're talking early 2000s, late 90s. So maybe we'll see those hit the market. Maybe not. Maybe they won't produce it. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, obviously, looking at this one, and certainly this rainbow-colored Super Ocean Heritage 57, it looks like Breitling really wants us to know that they're not only a man's guy's watch any longer. And what I mean by that is Breitling's really has been known for having kind of that rugged, durable, tough guy sports watch mixed with pilot's watches, and that's really all they were offering. Of course, they had some other things, but they're always inspired by aviation or rugged, durable sports. And now we have this ladies watch on the homepage. Interesting to see what happens. Maybe this will disappear in a week. Time will tell. Now this one, let's click on this rainbow watch. This is a little bit off for a Breitling watch in recent times, certainly. Rugged, durable, chunky sports watches. Capsule collection pays tribute to the original 57 Super Ocean. Okay, yeah, I mean, this looks a lot like the original Super Ocean, with the exception of this colorway. But it's a layback surfing lifestyle of the 1960s. Limited edition of 250 pieces. Will they produce this watch in 250 pieces? Or will they wait and see how many people hit this pre-order button? I kind of like it. I think it looks nice. I wouldn't pay $5 for it. But, if you want a Breitling watch with tie-dye markers, I think this is probably your watch. Let's see the specs on this. Breitling 10 movement. Okay, 100-meter water resistance, not great, but for a vintage-inspired watch that's tie-dye, more than sufficient for surfing. Right away, we're getting some retro colors out of this video. They really want this to be a retro type watch. They're going after surfers. Makes a lot of sense. Who knows? Maybe we will see Breitling develop a lot of marketing strategies around surfing. I don't know how popular. If you're a surfer, leave that in the comments below. I would love to hear it. Actually, I really like the way that they put that Breitling B on the dial. That's pretty nice. It looks cool. This video, I need to get out of this video because it's really starting to grow on me, and I don't know if I could live with myself wearing this. But watch, guys, a year from now, you'll see this on my wrist after I hit a gray market for 2,500. Let's take a look. Let's go back to the other new watches before I end up pre-ordering this one here. Okay, let's jump into this one, the Super Ocean Automatic 46 Black and Steel. Actually, let's not, because this looks a lot like everything else that Breitling has been known for in the last 5-10 years, which is a lot of just modernizing and putting, rubber and other composites on the bezel of watches that they pretty much had in the past. 46 millimeter, 6100. I think that's in par with what they have. This Chronomat B01 42. Now, while I do want to talk about it, I want to see if there's any other watches that are new that they are offering, because I want to end on that one, because I do have a lot of opinions on that and whether or not it's going to work for Breitling. Let's take a look at new watches 2020. Aviator 8. Okay, so Breitling is coming back out with their original Breitling Pilots chronograph with the reference 765 1953 re-edition. Okay, the $39,000 platinum version. Let's leave that by the wayside. Okay, I really like the design on this. We have the 765 1953, and it's celebrating the co-pilot reference 765 introduced in 1953. So they're going with the whole vintage-inspired watch. Well, actually, pretty much a reissue almost. It looks based on the design. The original here, I mean, obviously the specs are going to be different, but the design is pretty much the same. 70-hour power reserve. Wow, that's great. Breitling B09 manufacturer. This is going to be a really nice movement from Breitling. 39 joules, fifth of a second, 15 minutes, 12 hours. Okay, this is a really nice watch. We have screwed in case back. No, and screw dimensions. 41 millimeters. It looks like it's probably going to wear a lot like a Speedy Pro Omega Speedmaster Professional, clocking in at 42. This is a 41. Okay, so this is a sufficient watch with good movement, good specs. This is a lot like Breitling's version of the Omega Speedmaster 321. So while I wanted to praise Breitling for coming out with this watch and coming out with this reissue, and you're going to notice it looks a lot like a Breguet Type 20, Type 21, which is that same French pilot watch styled aviation watch. And so many other manufacturers made these back in the day. Breguet Type 20, Type 21s have come back. Made sense for Breitling to come out with this as well. They have the original design that they created with this co-pilot. But now that I think about it, this is exactly what Omega is doing with their Speedmaster 321 limited edition. I bet this is limited in pieces, probably to 1953. One of 1953. So 1953 limited pieces. Yeah, this is exactly what Omega's doing with the Speedmaster 321. But, for a brand that's really been dying, relatively speaking, I think it only makes sense for them to ride the coattails of other brands or completely change everything. And I don't know that they're willing to do that. So let's move on. I like the design. I like the style. Obviously, they're going after that 321 type market that came out with the customers looking for nice high-end specs, but a vintage model. So we'll see. I mean, they're not using a vintage movement, but I don't think you would necessarily want to. But moving on, let's go back to, let's just go right to it. Let's go to the watch we all want to talk about, Breitling's AP Royal Oak, the Chronomat B01 42 integrated Genta-esque style watch. guys, I hate to admit it, but I do like the way that it looks. And the way that they have these markers and the way that the lume is on the markers looks a lot like what they were doing in vintage chronographs, vintage Rolex chronographs. I mean, the style is obviously Newman-esque, exotic dial chronographs. I mean, pair that with the Genta-esque watch, chunky case. How big is this watch? It's a B01 manufacturer movement, nice high-end 70-hour power reserve movement. So the specs are there. The case, 200-meter water resistance. So they want you to splash in this thing. This is going to have Breitling's case construction with a little bit pocket, a little bit chamber, and the way that they put some pieces in there on those chrono pushers to allow the water not to get in. So this is a watch they want you to splash around with. Obviously more chunky, sportier than the normal Royal Oak, and that's what they're going after, and it's $8,100. So sure, while that is a lot in terms of luxury sports watches, more than competitive when you're comparing it to the other watches that look like it, like the Alpine Eagle from Chopard, like the Girard-Perregaux Laureato, like the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, and certainly a Nautilus if you want to throw that in there just for kicks. Okay, so they have other styles as well. I want to see every style that they have of this. They have a bunch of versions. You know, they have a bunch of versions. They have a white dial. They have some two-tones or almost two-tones. At least the case is two-tone with some accents on it. The pushers, the crown. Ooh, look at this one. So they have the inverse. They have a bunch of versions of this. Obviously a Japan limited edition. But one thing I want to touch on is this specific bracelet is something that Breitling used to use on watches from the LCD watches. When we're talking about they first called it the Navitimer, but then they quickly renamed it to the Aerospace, and the early Aerospace had this cylindrical link style on the bracelet. So I like to see Breitling bring this bracelet style back because it was very comfortable. But once again, I do think that while the watches look nice and the specs are there, Breitling is really late to this AP Royal Oak style watch game. So what do we think about Breitling's new watch offerings? Personally, I think that a lot of them look nice. That is the job of a luxury company, is to make their watches or their products look nice. They need to look nice, they need to look shiny, they need to look cool, hip, and people need to want to be attracted to them in order to buy them. That's how luxury goods work. So I think they're on the right track, but with so many brands out there offering watches and quality watches and have a little bit more clout or attraction, or they're more in the eye of collectors today, I don't know that Breitling will be successful with this. Now that being said, if somehow Breitling is able to be extremely successful with this watch, specifically the B01 42 Chronomat that they just released, which I'm talking about here, if they're able to be successful with this in an economic downturn, in one of the worst financial times in the history of recent world, wow, that's a comeback story for the ages, and in which case I will make a follow-up video saying how great of a job they did. But I don't see it. People aren't really buying brand new watches right now. Authorized dealers are closed. Authorized dealers can't even place an order. Breitling has to sell these directly from their website, in which they're taking orders, and people know they can get a 35% at least discount on a brand new Breitling. So why would they pay a retail price of over $8,000 when they know eventually if they want that watch anyway, they just need to wait until the authorized dealers open up again, in which case the buzz has already died down. But I think if Breitling would have come out with this model a lot sooner and perhaps beat Chopard to the game, perhaps beat Girard-Perregaux from relaunching the Laureato, so on and so forth, and all the other brands that have either ripped off the AP Royal Oak or the Nautilus or something similar, or have very similar styling cues and designs and aesthetics, then I think that they would have been more successful. But I think they're very late to the game. This is a difficult time, and I think that this shows us that Breitling probably has some difficult times ahead, and they just threw it out as perhaps a last-ditch effort to kind of regain the attention of watch collectors. But on the flip side, there's not many brands releasing watches right now. They've either held off or they're just not doing it because these are troubling times, and Breitling is basically getting free advertising out of this. While I'm not going to buy one of these, there may be someone out there or a whole bunch of people that say, wow, that's actually pretty cool. I like the chunkier design. I like what they did with the dial. It's a chronograph. I'm going to buy one. Yeah, maybe their strategy worked and they got free advertising out of this. Other people, I'm sure, are going to talk about this. There's not a lot to talk about in the watch industry right now. Maybe that's their strategy. I don't know. Time will tell. Nonetheless, I don't think that this watch particularly is going to be successful, and I think we'll see it in about a year and a half from now, probably gray market at 40% off if they decide to produce large volumes anyways, because Breitling, while they're taking pre-orders now, they could always just not produce a lot of these watches and save themselves the hassle and the trouble and the financial loss, and ultimately the disappointment of not being able to regain the attention of watch collectors again. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear it. And once again, I'm not ripping on Breitling in terms of quality or how nice the watches are. I do think that they make a great watch, a nice product, and it is par for the course in terms of what the watches are being sold for, but I just sometimes don't totally understand their strategy, and I think that it shows. Let me know what you think. Comments below. Love to hear it. Please do not forget to thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Hopefully everyone is well and doing the best that you can given the circumstances we're all in, and we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P. Ciao.